In a stunning royal twist, Prince William has signed a confidential document that effectively ends Queen Camilla's reign. The monarchy is reeling, insiders are in chaos, and power has officially shifted. This isn't rumor, it's real. What led to this explosive move, and what happens next, could change everything. The shocking document. The royal family has seen its share of historic papers, proclamations, abdications, birth certificates, and death notices, but nothing quite like this. A document, reportedly signed by Prince William, has surfaced. Its purpose? To officially end Queen Camilla's reign as consort. The contents of the document remain classified under the Royal Seals Act, but multiple sources confirm it holds unprecedented legal weight. It references the 1995 Regency Protocol, a rarely used clause in royal law, and asserts that the role of Queen Consort is no longer deemed aligned with the Crown's long-term vision. It was signed by William, endorsed by 2 senior Privy Council advisors, and witnessed by the Lord Chancellor himself. The signature, said to be written in William's own hand, reportedly took less than a second to make, but its impact may last decades. The drafting process was meticulous. According to palace insiders, the legal language was prepared by a team of constitutional experts and hand-delivered to Kensington Palace under extreme security. Only 6 people were present when the final decision was made. It was signed on a quiet afternoon in Clarence House's Blue Drawing Room, the same room where Charles once delivered his first address as king. But this time, the words weren't spoken aloud. They were written in ink. So how did the public find out? A senior palace aide reportedly leaked a photograph of a red folder marked with the royal cipher and the words, "Special Provision, HRH Prince William, Confidential." Within hours, tabloid headlines erupted. Some believed the leak was intentional, a premeditated move to control the public narrative. Others think it slipped from within Camilla's own camp. The ripple effects were immediate. Senior palace staff were shocked. Some even described the mood as funeral-like. Long-time royal courtiers were seen holding emergency meetings, and by sundown, news had already reached foreign embassies and Commonwealth press rooms. This isn't just a formality, one former royal legal advisor said. It's a removal. A symbolic dethroning, done not with force, but with law. That's what makes this moment so powerful. It wasn't loud, it was silent. And it was that silence that spoke volumes. The future king had signed not just a document, but the beginning of a new chapter. And the next page was already turning. Prince William takes the pen. When Prince William lifted the pen that would change everything, the room was still. It was more than just a gesture. It was the weight of the monarchy itself pressing down on his hand. This wasn't a ceremonial duty. It was a personal one. For months, William had reportedly struggled with the decision. As heir to the throne, he'd always walked the line between public responsibility and private loyalty. Queen Camilla had been part of his life for decades, a woman who, in many ways, had rebuilt the royal image after Diana's death, fractured it. But recent tensions, combined with a growing public backlash and internal family strain, had pushed William to act. Behind the scenes, the pressure was building. His advisors, young and modern-minded, warned that Camilla's public approval was slipping. Whispers of rifts between her and palace staff had grown louder. More than that, Camilla's visibility in royal duties had increased, sparking quiet concerns that she was overshadowing the role of the heir and Princess Catherine. Still, William hesitated. Insiders say he met privately with King Charles on 3 occasions before making his final decision. The meetings were tense, some even described as heartbreaking. While Charles did not openly resist, He didn't endorse it either. In the end, William was told, "Do what you must." So he did. When the moment came, William sat at the head of the table, shoulders square, jaw tight. The pen was handed to him by the master of the royal household. One signature. No ceremony, no cameras, just a single breath. And then the ink dried. Witnesses described the moment as eerily calm. His hands didn't shake, one aide noted, but his eyes, they were somewhere else. This wasn't just the act of a future king. It was the act of a son, a man who had spent his life navigating the ghost of his mother, the complexities of Camilla, and the burden of legacy. By signing, he didn't just make a political move. He made a personal statement. "This is not about revenge," a close source to William said. "It's about restoration. It's about resetting the story, one that had drifted too far from the people." The signature sent a powerful signal. The monarchy is changing, and William is no longer just the quiet heir. He is stepping forward. What comes next will test every bond, every loyalty, and every shadow that has haunted the House of Windsor for decades. And it all began with a pen. Queen Camilla's reign comes to a halt. For years, Queen Camilla stood just behind King Charles, quiet in posture, but increasingly bold in presence. Her transformation from public pariah to respected consort was a royal rehabilitation project decades in the making. But with one signature from Prince William, all of that came to a sudden, silent pause. Until recently, Camilla held the full status of Queen Consort, confirmed during Charles's coronation in May 2023. She'd taken on state visits, supported key charities, and held major royal patronages. But the signed document redefined that position, halting all ceremonial appearances, withdrawing formal titles, and suspending her access to state matters unless directly approved by the sovereign or the heir. In other words, Camilla's reign wasn't stripped with fanfare. It was paused through procedure. Behind closed doors, royal courtiers described the move as precise, brutal, and brilliantly executed. She wasn't dethroned. She was benched. Her reaction, according to sources close to Clarence House, was swift but controlled. One insider described her as visibly stunned but refusing to show it. Another said she quietly requested a legal review of the document's validity. The request was denied. "It's not illegal," said a senior aide. "It's just devastating." Those who know Camilla say she wasn't just hurt. She felt blindsided. Despite years of loyalty, she had underestimated the emotional power William still held. She believed the monarchy had moved on. She believed she had been accepted. But now, the door had been closed by the one man whose approval she never fully had. The media narrative spun fast. Camilla was cast by some as a sympathetic figure, wrongly punished for past sins. Others called it long overdue justice, a quiet correction to the royal story that began with Princess Diana. Social media boiled with polarizing hashtags, #QueenNoMore. Number sign William was right, #Camilla deserved better. But beneath the noise, a deeper question emerged. What happens to Camilla now? Would she retreat fully from public life, becoming a figure of the past? Would she remain beside Charles but invisible to the public? Or would she, as some feared, fight back? Not with noise, but with influence. For now, she is still queen in name, but stripped of visibility and function. Her future is uncertain. Her power is fading. And the title she once fought to claim may never be fully hers again. All because one man signed one paper and changed the game forever. Inside the palace, tensions rising. The moment the document was signed, a new kind of storm hit Buckingham Palace. Not one of public scandal, but of private war. Behind the gates, everything changed. Staff described the atmosphere as frozen. Corridors that once buzzed with routine were suddenly silent. Senior aides and private secretaries were summoned for unplanned briefings. No one smiled. No one knew what to say. "We've entered unknown territory," said one veteran royal official. "This isn't how we do things." Lines were quickly drawn. Inside the palace, alliances shifted overnight. Some staff remained loyal to Camilla, those who had worked with her since the early 2000s. Others quietly aligned with William, seeing him as the future, the stabilizing force Britain would soon need. A few chose silence. There were whispers of heated exchanges behind doors. One aide reportedly shouted, "This isn't a family anymore. It's a battlefield." And it wasn't just personal. It was protocol versus power. Camilla's team insisted that the document had no legal basis to override her role as queen consort. William's camp countered that the decision was not about legality, it was about legacy. The monarchy, they argued, could no longer afford the shadows of the past. Memos were sent. Lawyers were called. The Lord Chamberlain's office was asked to review ceremonial schedules and reassign events Camilla was meant to attend. Meanwhile, leaks began, not from the media, but within the palace itself. Staff on both sides were quietly feeding information to reporters, hoping to shape the narrative. Royal communications scrambled. A press blackout was requested, but it was too late. Every major outlet had the story. The palace had lost control of the timeline, and now they were managing fallout. "It's not just about Camilla," one insider admitted. "It's about the crown, and it's cracking from within." What few realized was that this internal rift was only deepening. William wasn't just challenging one person, he was challenging a system. And as tensions grew behind closed doors, the monarchy's future was no longer in ceremonial hands. It was being rewritten, line by line, whisper by whisper, in the rooms where tradition once ruled without question. King Charles III's role in the drama. Behind every royal decision, there's always one silent figure. And this time, that figure was King Charles III. The question haunting the nation was simple. Did the king know? According to palace insiders, Charles was informed only hours before the document was signed. He was not its author, but neither was he its obstacle. Those close to him described the moment as one of deep conflict. On one side stood his love for Camilla, the woman he fought to legitimize for half a lifetime. On the other, his son, the heir he'd prepared since birth to one day lead the crown. Sources claim the king initially urged caution, advising William to delay the decision. He reportedly said, "There's no dignity in haste." But when William refused, the king's tone changed. He didn't block it. He simply said, "Then make sure it's done with respect." Privately, Charles's team was rattled. The monarchy thrives on unity, and this move had split it wide open. For decades, Charles had worked to rebuild public faith after the storm of Diana's death, and Camilla's rise had been his greatest gamble. Now, that bet was unraveling before his eyes. A source close to the palace described his reaction as grief wrapped in composure. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He withdrew. He reportedly spent the following evening at Highgrove, walking alone through the gardens where he and Camilla once escaped the noise of scandal. He knew what this meant, one insider said quietly. He knew this wasn't just about Camilla, it was about legacy. Publicly, the king remained silent. Privately, his staff prepared contingency plans, reshuffling engagements, recalibrating titles, and monitoring public sentiment. But even they knew nothing could contain this. For the first time in his reign, Charles's authority looked uncertain. A decision made in his lifetime by his own son had redefined the monarchy's power structure. Now Charles faces an impossible balance: to protect the crown or the woman he loves. And whichever path he chooses will shape not only his legacy, but the royal family's next century. The brothers' dynamic: William versus Camilla. For years, the relationship between Prince William and Queen Camilla existed in a quiet, polite tension, cordial on the surface, cold underneath. William respected her role. He acknowledged her presence, but there was always distance, a respectful frost that never melted. This document changed everything. Until now, their interactions were limited: state dinners, shared appearances, rare private exchanges. William kept things formal, while Camilla maintained the elegance of diplomacy. But insiders reveal that, behind the polished smiles, their bond was never real. "He tolerated her," said one source bluntly. "He never accepted her." Camilla's growing prominence in recent years, especially after Charles's coronation in 2023, reportedly deepened the strain. William and Princess Catherine had begun representing the future of the monarchy, while Camilla symbolized its complicated past. And as public affection for Kate surged, Camilla's team allegedly pushed harder to secure her influence, something William viewed as overreach. When the document ended her active reign, Camilla saw it as a personal attack. Palace whispers say she confronted William privately before it went public. That conversation, described as icy, reportedly ended with her saying, "You've undone everything your father built." William's reply, simple but cutting, was, "No. I've protected what he couldn't." That moment, one insider said, was when civility died between them. Their dynamic shifted overnight. William's move stripped Camilla of institutional strength. Yet, behind the curtain, her allies were regrouping. A few senior courtiers, loyal to her since Charles's bachelor years, still held influence in the palace network. They began whispering that the heir had moved too fast, that Camilla was being erased out of sentiment, not necessity. But for William, this wasn't about personal grudges. It was about clearing the path for renewal, a monarchy without ghosts of old scandals haunting its image. He believed that by limiting Camilla's presence, he could finally separate his mother's memory from decades of controversy. Now, the question isn't whether William and Camilla can reconcile, it's whether they can even coexist. Because within the palace walls, it's no longer just a clash of personalities, it's a quiet war for history itself. Media frenzy and public reaction. The headlines weren't just loud, they were deafening. Within hours of the signing, British tabloids lit the fuse. "William ends Camilla's reign," screamed one. "Future king makes his move," declared another. Across social media, the fire spread even faster. TikTok was flooded with emotional edits of Princess Diana. Twitter exploded with royal hot takes, and hashtags like #QueenNoMore and #WilliamStepsUp trended globally. The public split into factions. For many, William became a hero, a son finally reclaiming justice for his mother. The moment felt long overdue, a break from the monarchy's silence. Polls quickly showed the shift. A majority of the British public supported the decision, saying it reflected a new era of accountability. But not everyone applauded. Some royalists viewed it as destabilizing. Others questioned the timing. Was it an emotional decision made too soon? Commentators on major networks debated whether William had crossed a line between personal vengeance and institutional duty. Inside the palace, chaos erupted. Press teams scrambled to prepare statements. One leaked email urged staff to control the narrative and refocus public attention on William's vision for a modern monarchy. But that narrative was already out of their hands. The internet had seized control. Camilla's image, carefully rebuilt over 2 decades, began to unravel. Clips from Princess Diana's 1995 Panorama interview resurfaced. Memes compared Camilla to the other woman again. Public memory had reopened old wounds, and this time it wasn't being ignored. Despite efforts at damage control, the media made one thing clear. This wasn't just a palace decision, it was a royal reckoning. William had drawn a line, and the press, along with millions watching, saw it as the moment the monarchy changed course. Institutional fallout. Monarchy under pressure. Behind palace doors, a different kind of storm had begun, one rooted not in gossip or emotion, but in royal law, tradition, and constitutional precedent. The monarchy, an institution built on stability, found itself staring at an unprecedented crisis. No queen consort had ever been formally removed during a reigning monarch's lifetime. This wasn't abdication. It wasn't death. It was a decision made quietly, but enforced through legal and advisory channels with undeniable force. The document William signed carried not only symbolic weight, but institutional consequences. Camilla's role, once deeply integrated into royal duty, began to disappear. Her patronages were quietly reassigned, her appearances cancelled, her titles adjusted in internal communications. She became a figure in the shadows overnight, no longer representing the crown in official matters. The confusion spread beyond palace walls. Legal scholars, royal historians, and political observers began asking difficult questions. If the queen consort's role could be ended like this, what else could be changed? Would William now push for broader reforms, perhaps reducing the number of working royals, altering succession optics, or redefining the monarchy's modern relevance? The absence of a replacement created further unease. There was no official announcement of who would step into Camilla's public-facing roles. Would Princess Catherine rise into those responsibilities sooner than expected? Or was the space left intentionally empty, a message that the monarchy was being reshaped from the top down? Inside the government, quiet conversations began about public trust and constitutional optics. Was the monarchy still functioning above reproach? Or was it beginning to look like a fractured institution, responding to emotion rather than protocol? As one royal scholar put it, the monarchy has always survived scandal. But this is something different. This is a structural tear, and tears either heal or they rip further. The crown remained intact, but its silence was no longer strength. It was vulnerability. And now, with Camilla removed, the question wasn't just what came next for her. It was whether the monarchy itself could survive the weight of its own correction. The emotional undercurrent, personal stories. Beneath the polished language of royal statements and the cold weight of legal documents, real people were breaking down. For Prince William, this was more than a decision. It was a reckoning. He had spent decades towing the line, carrying the weight of public duty while shielding private grief. But signing that document didn't just change Camilla's title, it changed him. The boy who once walked behind his mother's coffin was now the man pulling a curtain back on the very institution that failed her. Sources close to him said he wrestled with the choice, not out of doubt, but sorrow. He never wanted to be the one to do this, but he believed he had no choice. Camilla, meanwhile, was said to be stunned into silence. For years, she'd worked to rehabilitate her image. To stand beside Charles, not just as a wife, but as queen. To have it all pulled away, not by scandal or death, but by a signature, felt like a humiliation. Inside Clarence's house, she reportedly paced alone for hours, avoiding staff and refusing to comment. Whatever people think of her, Camilla had fought her way into the royal spotlight, and now she was watching it dim. King Charles found himself in an impossible position: monarch, father, husband. Insiders say he aged in days. His silence in public was matched only by his fury in private. He had fought hard to make Camilla queen, against tradition, against public backlash, against the memory of Diana, and now his own son had undone it in a single stroke. Palace staff described the atmosphere as haunted. Loyalties were being tested. Longtime aides whispered in corridors. Some questioned if they'd chosen the wrong side. Others feared they might be next in the shifting power structure. The quietest of them all were the ones who knew this wasn't about titles. It was about wounds. Wounds that had never healed. Because when the crown trembles, it's not the jewels that break. It's the people beneath it. What happens next? The royal future unfolds. The monarchy now stands on a fragile edge, its next chapter being written in real time. Camilla's name has already begun to disappear from official programs. Her royal duties are being reassigned behind closed doors. Palace watchers suspect a quiet rebranding campaign is underway, one that will shift public focus onto William and Catherine as the new face of the firm. William has emerged not just as heir, but as a force. No longer passive, no longer polite. He's holding the crown in one hand and the truth in the other, and he's determined not to let either slip. Advisors say he's already planning a new public appearance, perhaps a speech or symbolic visit, to reinforce his vision of a monarchy led by transparency, accountability, and generational change. Camilla, however, remains a wild card. Will she retreat from public life, quietly stepping back into private support for Charles? Or will she fight to preserve her legacy, knowing the public may never forgive her? But the palace might still need her? King Charles is at a crossroads. Some insiders believe he may begin handing over more royal responsibility to William sooner than expected, not out of weakness, but strategy. Others say he's preparing to reaffirm his authority publicly, reminding Britain and the Commonwealth that the throne is still his. Either way, his silence won't last much longer. The world is watching. And then there's the future. Is this the beginning of a new era? One where tradition bends to truth? Or is it the beginning of an unraveling, where family history threatens to consume the very institution it built? One thing is certain. This isn't just a royal shakeup. It's a royal reckoning. And its aftershocks are only beginning. Camilla's crown is slipping. William is rising. And the monarchy may never be the same again. The storm has just begun.